Welcome to our podcast. So this podcast will be on procrastination, a problem that many of us face in our personal and academic life.
Exactly. Today we are diving deep into why procrastination happens and how we can overcome it. I am Hui Qian.
I'm Hong Chen.
And today we have also invited a special guest, Mr. Somesh, who is a student wellness manager from Office of Student Affairs, to actually help us understand better on procrastination.
Everything we will share is based on our personal insights, so it's not really like professional advice. If procrastination is really severely affecting your life, then you should seek professional help from a counselor or healthcare provider.
Distinguish between procrastination and just a temporary lack of motivation.
So I think for me personally, if I were to go into definitions of procrastination, I think some procrastination can be broken down into two kinds of procrastination. One is, I think, short-term procrastination, and one is more prolonged. I think it can be something which is more chronic. So when it comes to procrastination, which happens in the short term, I think what happens is that I think many of us we tend to probably go into that loop where we feel that we just feel like we don't want to do certain things. Like there's a delay in our willingness to want to complete a task. So we look for alternatives to kind of basically find other things to do that will lead us down this path of procrastinating. And I think for chronic procrastination, it's something which is, I think, more insidious in the sense that it happens because of things tied to one's self-worth. Could be perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
Someone might think that they might be perfectionists in that sense, leading them down this path where they feel that they just don't want to attend to the task at hand. Temporary lack of motivation, I think that's more something that we can bounce back off from easily in that sense, because it's temporary. It's something that probably allows us to self-regulate if we just take that time off and then get back to the task. So I think that's where the main difference is. So I think from just my sensing based on the students that I interact with, and also from my experience as a student myself, I feel procrastination is something that most of us do at some point or another in our academic lives. I think it is a form of escape for many, but I think how do we navigate around procrastination is actually the main fundamental thing that differentiates one from being a chronic procrastinator.
Under the causes of procrastination, we're thinking of discussing some of the factors that you mentioned, like perfectionism. So maybe we can start from perfectionism.
Yeah. So I think for perfectionism, I think there's this inherent thing where we might fear fear failure. I think that's honestly what's there's this sense of wanting to just do the task the best of your ability, but being perfect at it is something that we can hardly achieve. I think when we go into that cycle, what happens is that then students feel the lack of motivation to begin, right? So
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think personally it happens to me a lot. Like often it's an essay, like a very long essay, and I just don't know where to start. But maybe like subconsciously, I hope I can do very well in it.
Yeah.
But I know like the amount of time that I have and the expectation that I set for myself.
Yeah.
There's a mismatch between the reality and the expectation.
Yeah.
So at the end, I just want to withdraw myself from it completely so that I don't need to face the frustration that I'm already expecting will happen.
It happens with a lot of people. I think when I speak to students myself as a wellness manager, this is a common recurring theme where I feel students genuinely struggle to want to basically complete an assignment or even get into, for example, completing that essay, because there's this need to be perfect. For example, they want to plan everything out perfectly before they even start. And sometimes when they are planning, they get very overwhelmed, and then they're like, oh my God, like there's so little time, and that sometimes even leads them to procrastinate even more. So sometimes very well knowing that there might be unintended consequences like stress or the fact that you might miss a deadline, students still decide to work very last minute because some of them believe that they can work wonders in being able to hyper focus at the end. But most of the time, it's not possible because assignments can be as large as maybe a 3,000 word essay, for example.
Yeah, exactly. There's something that is super urgent, but like very difficult and challenging, then I'll rather switch to something that is not as urgent but easier to do. But actually, that is also a form of procrastination.
Yeah.
I remember there's a phrase called like productive procrastination. So you're actually doing something that you also need to do, but actually it's not the thing that you are supposed to do at the moment.
Yeah, it's not so high on your rank of what needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
And Bill, on top of that, I do realize that finishing our assignments gives us a sense of satisfaction, but it's not comparable to the instant gratification from doom scrolling due to the influence of social media. So, Mr. Somesh, could you elaborate on
that? On the doom scrolling bit?
Yeah, how it provides that instant gratification.
I think, okay, I'm not a psychologist. I actually am more of a social work trained. So based on the knowledge I have about just how our brains work, I think we are probably living in an era where I think we are looking for the instant gratification because of the dopamine hits that we get from scrolling. And I think that's something that is addictive, and we need to be more mindful about, because if we are not mindful about these dopamine hits that we usually get on a daily, sometimes from the moment we get out of bed till we kind of sleep, then it becomes addictive, and it then starts affecting our ability to concentrate, and that in turn leads us down this path of then getting easily distracted when we are trying to focus on doing something, and then down that path of procrastination. So it's a cycle, and it's something that can be from one to the next. It is definitely something that is affecting many people, and I think not just normal individuals. I think those who are neurodivergent as well. I think those who have ADHD, I think then it makes it even more difficult for them to then focus, because they are looking for those dopamine hits.
And I think like there's some like neuroscience behind it also, because they like long-term goal and social media.
Yes.
They engage different parts of our brain.
Yeah.
So like the prefrontal cortex
Yes.
of our brain is responsible for decision making and long-term goal, but which is while on the other hand, like social media involves our limbic system more, like emotions and rewards.
Yeah.
So sometimes like when we scroll through social media, the limbic system
Yes.
and the rewards and emotions, the positive emotions that we can get, override the decision making in the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
There's also another layer to the biological power. So when we are doing a bit of research on this, we realized that the imbalance of neurotransmitters such as dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, they can also contribute to low motivation because they affect our ability to concentrate, they affect our mood, and actually like some conditions like ADHD is also essentially an imbalance of the neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
I think sometimes like maybe it's less controllable than we thought it is.
We think it is. Yeah, completely. Especially when it comes to our brains, it's something we can't control. I think, and it depends on the stage of life we are in. If, for example, students or people, when they start realizing themselves better, and they can be diagnosed at a very early age or maybe very late into their lives regarding, for example, ADHD, right? So if those who are neurodivergent. So I think there's, of course, things that are in our locus of control and things that are not in our locus of control. So what is not in our locus of control is probably a diagnosis that we may have missed when we were growing up, and that could have led to us not knowing our reasons for procrastinating, or why we tend to probably take so long to complete a task.
Yeah.
So of course, being kinder to ourselves is important.
We would like to ask if there is any good to procrastination, in your opinion.
I think there are a couple of benefits to procrastinating as well. Not necessarily bad procrastination, but I think there's this thing called active procrastination. So I think if I were to give a couple of examples that are good, I think one would be the idea that we have this creative incubation that we call it, where we on a very subconscious level, when we are procrastinating, we tend to delay a task, and then our brain then has more time to process this subconsciously, and then allowing us to be more creative. So that would be one. I think another is being able to then better prioritize what is in our rank of things that we want to do. So some certain things that which could be low priority could then be done faster, because we have that anxiety that we have to get to the main task that we are procrastinating about. So I think probably our ability to then better prioritize. I think the last minute energy also that comes with procrastinating sometimes leads us to wonders. Like they always say, right? Sometimes you just really, when you are able to hyper focus at the end, sometimes things can work our way. And that's why people tend to use that as a reason to procrastinate the next time around, because it worked for them the previous time. So it could be also in a very short amount of time being able to do a lot of work which we might not do otherwise. So I think these are some of like the benefits. And also I think the idea of avoiding unnecessary work, because we are then able to like really cut off things that don't really matter to us.
Yeah, I think personally, because I usually, if it's like a essay assignment for me, I will spend like very long time and keep refining it.
Yeah.
So if I start a bit later, then I will prioritize completion over perfection. So I don't like keep refining it and spending excessive time on it.
Yeah. And I think maybe sometimes, as you said, right, it will prevent you from ruminating and trying to make that essay of yours perfect, because perfection is always something that we strive, but it's very hard to achieve, as I said, right? So I think it will prevent us from doing that. Where we strive for perfection, in that process we are actually neglecting other important things. So it can cut that and can help you to get things done faster.
What is your view on how procrastination affects our health?
I think when we look at health, we look at not just physical health but mental health as well. If we look at it from the physical health perspective, I think our immune system is something that can be impacted if procrastination leads us to constantly feel anxious or stressed. Then this might really have some longer term impact on our immunity. I think people with prolonged anxiety and stress in their bodies, sometimes it can even be psychosomatic, where it's trapped in your body, that anxiety, that stress you're feeling. And if it's constantly something that you are feeling because of procrastination, it can lead us to develop autoimmune conditions even. And that's why it's important that at the end of the day, we do not get caught up in this cycle of procrastination, which then leads us into feeling constantly stressed and anxious. Yeah, so weakened immune system is, I think, one of the side effects of, I think, chronic procrastination. Procrastination can also lead us to make probably some lifestyle choices that we might not be happy with, based on people's individual ways of coping. People could resort to probably drinking or smoking if they feel the need to, get themselves to distress. So these are probably some of the negative impacts that it might have on our physical health.
Yeah, and stress eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and or just like staying up late to complete the work.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then a vicious cycle, like every day feel very tired because you procrastinate till the end of the day to only start doing things like midnight.
Yeah.
Then, fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah, this may eventually result in burnout when we are too exhausted to function.
Exactly. And I think the mental health aspect also we cannot forgo, as you mentioned. I think when it comes to mental health, I think there's a lot of guilt and a lot of shame that we associate with when we think about procrastination, right?
Yeah.
Our ability to look at ourselves a certain way takes a hit, and that could lead people also to depression, even if it's something that is affecting them so much. Yeah.
We saw a study that compare Singaporean undergraduates and Canadian students.
Yeah.
And the study result shows that Singaporean students tend to view themselves as more of negative procrastinators.
Yes.
So both procrastinate, but when Singaporeans procrastinate, they feel it's worse. They still feel more. They feel worse about themselves. So I think there's like a lot of negative connotation to procrastination.
Yeah. When it comes to the Asian context, especially when we are seen as machines that are constantly in the need to be high functioning, I think that's something that of course, when we compare to our Western counterparts, they really know the art of slowing down and to basically be not look at themselves differently just because they procrastinate.
Yeah.
So I think yes, to destigmatize the whole idea that the whole notion that procrastination is bad, as we discussed earlier, there are some benefits to procrastination.
Yeah.
It's just not getting into that vicious cycle.
Yeah. Curious about the broader implications of procrastination, particularly in terms of relationship and our social life.
Yeah. I think once again, if we break it down into the definition of relationships, here it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, it can be a friendship even.
Yeah.
I think if we are not careful and the procrastination is chronic, then I think what happens is we can definitely then go into a path where we make broken promises, and then that develops into trust issues that we may have with our friends or even our partner in that case. And so in relationship building, I think what happens with the problem with procrastination is that we delay important tasks. It could be something as simple as like paying the bill or planning a trip or making certain promises and not living up to it. And I think that is probably what causes trust issues to develop and misunderstandings to develop.
Are there any scientifically proven techniques that help for students based on your expertise?
Okay. So before we move into, I think, the scientific techniques, I'd just like to probably bring into the forefront certain small things that we can do as individuals to tackle procrastination. I think one thing is to, of course, break our big tasks into smaller steps. So I think that's something that I do even on a daily, even now. When I have, for example, 101 things happening, I just look at my day, and I have limited number of hours in that day, so I'll try to create realistic targets for myself that I'll complete, for example, 5 items today. And these 5 items is something that I will try to complete, and if there are other things coming, I'll just park that aside first, focus on the 5 things, and then move on to the next. And then each time I'm able to meet one target, there's like this reward mechanism, right, where you're like, okay, I accomplished something. So you could basically thank yourself internally for certain things that you have done from your checklist, which gives you that reward system which builds, that helps you to fight that procrastination. So building a reward system for yourself, breaking big tasks into small tasks, I think it really helps. I think, and also ensuring that we try to block out times, we have a to-do list to help us, and of course eliminating distractions. I think at the end of the day, if we put our phones aside just for an hour or two, if we realize that we tend to just look at our phone every 10 minutes, I think if it helps, I think eliminating distractions can definitely help us to focus. And last but not least, I think practicing self-compassion. I think being kind to ourselves. And I also, I watched this TikTok the other day about how for our brains, right, like we tend to always like look at our brains, like when there's negative self-talk, we will just blame ourselves, why are we thinking this way? But if you were to externalize and look at name your brain, basically. Name your brain. For example, I name my brain Joey, for example. And I'm like, then basically talking to your brain in a kinder way. Tell yourself like, okay, Joey, why are these thoughts coming into your brain today? Like, for example, and then, okay, we will be kinder to ourselves today. Basically name your brain and then talk to your brain in a kinder way. As you mentioned, I completely agree with you on the idea that we have to practice self-compassion and be kinder to ourselves, so that we are able to continue and not be too hard on ourselves. And I think just to also talk about the scientific part on how we can address this situation, I think sometimes when I'm in sessions with students and I use certain therapeutic modalities, one of them is called cognitive behavioral therapy. It's called CBT. What we do in those sessions is to firstly look into the cognitive distortion that the student is facing, and also certain underlying beliefs that might be limiting or preventing the student from actually completing a task. So, for example, a student is trying to complete a report and is unable to finish that report, right? So what I would do in session is to ask the student to identify the thought. What is preventing him from completing that report, right? So and then he tells me that, for example, the report is actually very hard. I don't know how to start. I feel like this is something super difficult. I just feel very overwhelmed. Then what I will do is then ask the student to challenge that thought. So what makes it difficult? ask him these questions like, are you 100% sure this is going to be as difficult as your brain is telling you right now? What evidence do I have, for or against these thoughts that I'm facing? So that is probably the second step, which is challenging the thoughts that the student has. And then after that, identifying the emotion that the student is facing with regards to the report. Is it overwhelm? Is it anxiety? Is it avoidance? What exactly is that emotion? So pinpointing to the student what the emotion is. So just to summarize, it's firstly to identify the thought itself, and then to look into challenging that thought, and then the emotions behind that thought. And then of course at the end, changing that behavior. So that would be the ideal, which is then realizing that they need to change certain behaviors. So for example, they could set a timer for 15 minutes and then start their work, or they could probably start on the introduction of the report first and then look at other things later, and then set aside all distractions and then try to complete that report. These are small ways in which we use very small targets to allow the student to finish one thing at a time without feeling too overwhelmed. So small goals, and then get them to take it. Yeah.
I think sometimes small goals can be small as just starting for
yes,
5 minutes.
Exactly.
Just sit there for 5 minutes and see, like, if you just write down one sentence, then it's something that you can celebrate as well.
Yeah.
Then you can keep motivated by creating a positive cycle.
Exactly. And most of the times with students, when they get started, and that's the initial hurdle. Once they get started and they're in the works, they're doing their research, they're pulling ideas together, somehow or another, it gets them to actually start moving. So it's just the initial phase where they are resisting to start.
Yeah. And I think another concept that we want to mention is mindfulness.
Yes.
So like, keep yourself grounded in that moment.
Yeah.
Maybe like you don't need to have a very large goal, or I want to complete this, that in today, or in an hour.
So in your opinion, how do we normalize procrastination?
Yeah, I think really glad that we have mentioned this point about normalizing, because at the end of the day, I think everyone procrastinates sometimes. Even high achievers do it, and we all do it at some point, and it doesn't mean that we are lazy or incapable. At the end of the day, when we're procrastinating, it serves a function. It could be to regulate ourselves. It could be to basically get us to feel less overwhelmed. So I think it serves a function. And at the end of the day, we also need to know that because it serves a function, we have to be kind to ourselves if we catch ourselves procrastinating. It serves a purpose, and it doesn't define us. Because I think, as you mentioned, and as we all kind of discuss in the Asian context, we always look at procrastination in a very negative way.
Yeah.
So probably through this conversation, if there's one main takeaway people can get from this, is that we should not see it in a negative light, procrastination, and that we should not let it define us.
And we also shouldn't think that we tend to procrastinate much more than others.
Yes.
Maybe because we just have quite high standard, or we know ourselves very well.
Yeah.
Actually, based on stats, like procrastination is so common among uni students.
Exactly.
So it's a problem, or like something that we all face together.
Yeah. And it's okay to go slow. I think sometimes the art of moving slowly is something that people also have to understand, because we are always moving at the speed of light, and sometimes just going slow is something that might help us, but it is an art, because at the end of the day, it's also not easy to go slow, because when you're seeing everyone rushing around you and in this rat's race, it's not hard. It's not easy to slow down. So yeah, being kinder to ourselves and telling ourselves that it's okay to go slow.
Yeah. Actually, now I'm thinking like maybe it's also like a strategy, like maybe not intentionally, but a strategy that we came up subconsciously to get more breaks out of very busy schedules. So it really is it does serve a function.
Yeah, totally. Very interesting point. Yeah, subconsciously, as you say, it might be a way of trying to find ways to actually take a break.
Right. Otherwise we'll be just rushing everything, and because every time we complete something, another thing pop up. There's always things to do.
Yeah.
So how do we find breaks in between?
Exactly.
So in your opinion, maybe another question add-on, what resources do you recommend for students struggling with procrastination that they can find on campus?
Okay. So if they realize that procrastination is really impacting them quite significantly and they would like to seek some sort of direction, or they can always approach the student wellness managers who you can probably refer to the student support directory. From there you have a range of they will find out basically who your student wellness managers are, who, if you're staying on campus, who your residential wellness managers are, and then we can assist you to see if we can help you, to coach you, to see how you can probably get over that hurdle that procrastination has brought into your life. And if not, if it's something more serious, then we can also refer you to our counselling services in the university, so the university counselling services. And of course, if there are other underlying mental health conditions which we through our conversations realize that the student might be having, then we can also refer them to external organizations like, SOS, Samaritans of Singapore, or depending on their comfort, what they prefer. So bottom line is that the student has to, of course, feel comfortable enough to want to see us. And I also like to reiterate that when students see us, everything that we discuss is always going to be confidential, and it's something that will stay within the room. Unless they pose a threat to themselves or others, the conversations are always going to be confidential and anonymous.
Besides the resources suggested by Mr. Somesh, I would also like to add on that students can find a peer to chat in Universe PSS chat, or drop by any of the 8 stops on campus to talk to a peer student supporter or a student wellness manager. To recap, procrastination is a complex issue linked to various psychological factors that can affect both mental health and academic performance.
And breaking this procrastination cycle involves recognizing the underlying causes, setting manageable goals, and practicing self-compassion. And thank you so much for taking your time to join us for this episode, and thank you for those tuning in to this podcast. We hope that you will gain some insights into ways of overcoming procrastination and feel less guilty about procrastinating. This understanding helps us be kinder to ourselves and foster a more productive mindset overall.
So we have come to the end of the podcast. Remember, you are not alone in this struggle. There are resources available to help you manage procrastination effectively. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you.